So you want to get your PVS 14 on your head. Well, there's a bunch of ways of doing that, from the cheapest, which I'll show you, all the way to probably the most expensive unit out there. Well, not the most expensive, but it does get very pricey very quickly. So let's jump to cheap and work our way up from what we have. So the cheapest option possible comes with your kit. Will come with your PVS 14, typically if you buy it from a company. It's your JArms and what's called the skull crusher. These things are extremely uncomfortable. There's a reason it's called a skull crusher. It does work, it functions. This goes around your head, clips around your chin, you tighten it down, it crushes your skull. Your JArm goes on your PVS 14 and uses the bayonet style mount, which is one of the it's the worst option of the two. Clicks in, and there you go. PVS 14's on your head. Again, it'll work just fine if you want to play around. You're gonna have a headache in about 15 minutes flat. So there are nicer skull crushers out there. You can get more expensive ones, but again, if you're gonna be upgrading to something nice, save your pennies, go for a bump helmet. That's the next step up from this. We'll be going from this to, I'd say, a bump helmet. They make, Cry, I think, makes a nightcap, which is a nicer version of the skull crusher. I would skip that completely. Go for a nice helmet. Get a used ACH helmet. You'll see I have a Team Wendy bump. You can go all up and down that spectrum, but personally I think bump is the way to go. So let's bring out the helmet mounting options. One sec. So here is the Team Wendy bump that I have. When you buy a bump helmet or a ballistic helmet from one of the companies, Team Wendy or OpsCore or something like that, typically they will come already milled or molded with the mount in the front. So this one has a Wilcox mount up here for putting your attachments on, which saves you a little bit of money. You spend the money by buying the helmet. Now, you could go cheaper than this. You could buy a surplus ACH helmet. You could buy, typically that's what people do. You'll go on eBay, you'll find a surplus Kevlar of some kind and get that. Just be aware, if you're going that route, make sure that it either has a mount up front, or if it doesn't, make sure that you get one that fits your helmet. There are multiple styles of ways of attaching those to the helmet with straps or screws. Know what works best there. Personally, this, when they had their 4th of July sale, was 250 bucks. This has been great. I personally don't think I'd go any lower than this. You may be able to go for a cheaper helmet if you really want to save some money, but honestly, this is just perfect. Now, when it comes to attaching to here, you'll need a mount for it. And I have two examples, from the cheapest I could get to the most expensive I could afford. Let me bring you guys in a little closer and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so cheap as possible. This is a surplus Neurotos, what's called the Neurotos Rhino mount. And this is my Wilcox L4G24. Pretty much creme de la creme, bottom of the barrel. And don't get me wrong, this thing actually, while this was off at Wilcox getting a repair done on it, this thing worked plenty well. It allowed me to play in the dark still. I would use it if I had to. I don't think it's definitely not as good as this, but it does work. I picked this up from some used site. Think of like ARFCOM or something like that. $35 shipped. So super affordable. This I picked up broken, had a break in it. If you look at my Instagram, you'll see pictures of that break for $350. These typically new go for $450. And this is a pretty old one. This one's from 2003. And the nice thing was, Wilcox is awesome. The one thing about buying from a company like this is I put it in the mail, send it back to Wilcox as an RMA. They put a new part on here. They put some new hardware on the bottom, sent it back, and didn't charge me anything else. Very impressed with them. And it turned around within like a week. It was awesome. So there's your price difference. Now, we do need to talk about the two different styles of mounts when it comes to JArms. If you go with something like the Neurotos Rhino or the Rhino 2 that hasn't been upgraded, it will use your original JArm with what's called a bayonet style mount. Now, it, again, will function. Soldiers have been using it for, I don't know, 10 years now, probably, maybe a little longer, 15 years. Yeah, I think that's maybe 15 or 20 years this Neurotis has been around. And they work fine. They work. They're just not the best. So your J-arm goes in, it'll click in like that, and you'll notice there is a ton of wobble. This screw does not like to stay tight. It's very hard to get it to, like I have to, when I was using this, I'd had to snug this down with a pair of vice grips, make sure it was very tight. And then what I ended up doing was running a zip tie around the whole unit here, so it pulled it in together and kept it from wobbling. Because as you can see, there's a lot of wobble. It won't come apart, you won't lose your night vision, but it's not the best option. This one also does not have the ability to raise or lower in the back, so you can't move your optic higher or lower. So it's very limited in its use, but again, it works fine. $35 came with the unit, so this overall was a pretty cheap setup. And I'm probably gonna keep it. There's no reason to get rid of it. We're thinking about upgrading to another PVS 14, so Marley and I can both go hiking at night. And this will probably be what we use on that other one. Now, the other option is called a Dovetail. You'll notice it's winged. This is your typical Dovetail mount. Dovetail, again, if you have the money and can buy once, cry once, Dovetail is the way to go. It's a lot sturdier when it clicks in. It'll click in and it won't move, it has no play whatsoever. So this here is a Mod Armory, and I'll do a video on this separately if anybody wants to see it. This is the Mod Armory, what's it called? JArm. They make a Mod Armor JArm. It comes in both Dovetail and bayonet. I picked this up for $100 on the surplus market, used market. Because remember, I don't buy anything new. I never buy anything new. So together, yeah, this is like $400 or $500 for these two. But Dovetail, absolutely, if you have the money, Dovetail is the way to go. Now, talking about the L4G24. You have front to back, so you can bring your optic closer or further away. This one is a push, so the Neurotis over here is a force overcome. So all you do is just push and then click up. The Wilson Combat, the 24 is a button push. So you press the button and lock. It'll lock up in place, press the button, bring it down. The L4G11 is kind of a nicer version of that. It's a force to overcome as well. This one, you can move up or down depending on where you want it stowed. You also have, same as that one, you have the ability to move the PVS 14 at a kind of an angle so you get it directly in line with your eye. This one is a breakaway. I don't use the breakaway feature because I'm not like deep woods hiking where I need to worry about snagging my head, but that's this. So when you're talking about mounting up your PVS 14, your J-arm will go on. And this thing, I'm telling you, is rock solid. Now, your Dovetail goes in, like that. And last but not least, with your helmet, clips in. This is gonna be hard to show. Let me take the PVS off. So on your helmet, it will clip in on the top, and then push button, and it's locked in place. And I'm telling you, this setup here is about as rigid as you can get. It is absolutely the best way I have found of getting your PVS 14 on there. And then the nice thing about running a Dovetail is your higher end optics, not just your PVS 14, talking, what is it, PVS 31s, DTNVGs, DTNVSs, things like that. From what I understand, all typically use a Dovetail mount. So if you're at the range and somebody says, hey, you want to try out my super nice DTNVG, you're ready to go. Or if you get really crazy and decide it's time to upgrade, you are already ready with a Dovetail mount to upgrade to a higher end unit that uses a Dovetail. But again, if this is all you can afford, make sure you're in focus, then don't worry about it. It will work fine. Put this together, like that. Put this together, do a zip tie around this whole front section so it's sturdy, and it will actually work just fine. I was very impressed. I heard a lot of people complaining about how terrible it was. With just a zip tie, it got rid of this wobble, and it actually worked very well. I was very, very happy with it. Make sure you put some tape on here. Most people, personally, I don't like the, when you lift your PVS 14, it'll turn it off because of these sensors here, so put some tape across that. But that, personal use. There you go. That is how you get a PVS 14 mounted to your head. Again, if you have the money, L4G24, this Mata Armory Dovetail mount, and a Team Wendy bump is my suggested best use. That's because that's what I have and I've played with. If you can't afford that, lower end helmet with a mount would work just fine. Get you a used ACH helmet or something. $35 Neurotos and your JArm that came with your unit. Zip tie this together so it's snug, and it will work for you. It's not going to be perfect, and you'll probably upgrade eventually. But if this is all you can afford, don't hesitate. This setup here actually, I was more impressed than I had heard a ton of bad press on it, and I was actually more impressed with it than I thought it would be. I thought I would hate it, but yeah. So I'm keeping this in the collection so I can, if I ever need to reference a old Neurotos, you can see this. You can always upgrade too, as well, if you have the money, to the Neurotos 2. It's going to be about $100, $120. The Neurotos 2 allows upward, up and down, so you can move the optic higher or lower on your head, just like the Wilcox. So if you have that little bit, you may want to jump up to that. Above that would be a G11, which is about $250, $300 used. And then above that, I'd say the G24, which is, to me, is kind of creme de la creme. This thing is pretty much the best you can get. So there you go. That's how you get your PVS 14 on your head. Hope you guys like it. I do have the camera set up ready for night vision shooting, so we are going to be doing some night stuff, so get ready. Anyways, I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.